Well, Ladybarn Park is special to me because it's the first home venue that I had as a local footballer. That's me, the captain, with the ball there. Keith Tanner, Peter Mellor, who later went on to play for Fulham, you know, in the FA Cup final of 1975. Sadly, they lost 2-1 to West Ham. But Peter Mellor was an excellent goalkeeper. He was younger than the rest of us, but he was an excellent keeper. David Wright, Sing-Hwa Chang, Johnny Grant, Johnny Mullen, sadly whose funeral I went to last year, Andy Williams lived round the corner from me, Trevor Gill, myself, John Gwynne, Ernie Mainwaring and Brian Bostock. There's the Sherwood Forest team that played in Ladybarn Park here, where this picture was taken in 1961. Well, it's interesting you mentioned that Soccer Saturday and Jeff Stelling, because it's almost 20 years to the day since I did my first game for them at Blackpool, 4-3 against Blythe Spartans in the FA Cup.
I haven't got a clue, in truth, but, you know, John Gwynne's never wrong.
Yeah, I've had 20 good years doing that. It was Jeff who got me involved in that because he used to front the darts when I was a darts commentator, and we used to get on very well, and he got me onto that programme. But it all started, I was a school teacher initially. I taught for 20 years in Manchester schools, and when I didn't get a particular job that I thought I was entitled to, I rather got upset, and I decided to write to the two local radio stations asking if they'd give me an audition. I was then 35, you could call it middle-aged sort of discontent, if you like, and I got a reply immediately from Piccadilly Radio in Manchester, which was a very popular radio station, and the head of sport there was a certain Richard Keys. He said, would you like to do a football match? And I said, yeah. So he gave me a game. It was a FA Cup match, Chester City against Northwich Victoria. We were following Northwich, and that was my first ever game, and all he wanted was a 30-second report, and I think that was really an audition. And it went out on air. I heard it on the radio when I was on my way home, and after that I got regular work with Piccadilly Radio. I was still teaching, but I was able to give up teaching in 87 because by then I was doing all sorts of things, not just with football but with darts, a bit of cricket as well, and my ambition to become a sports commentator was beginning to be realised. That's where I lived, 76 Wellington Road. Anyway, we're almost at Whalley Range Cricket Club, so you can see it's about 1.5 miles from where I used to live. I'd bowled 3 straight balls, one probably shot along the ground. We didn't play on properly cultured wickets. And I might have got an LBW, but anyway, I got a hat-trick. And the umpire was an old boy of Chorlton Grammar School who played cricket for Whalley Range. And he said to me, do you want a game this afternoon? I was 16 years of age. He said, I said, yeah, I wouldn't mind. So I'll have to ask my mum and dad. I met down here at Whalley Range Cricket Club, and I played for Whalley Range at a place called Arley in Cheshire. Really enjoyed it and ended up playing here right through till 73 when I left. I remember one game here in particular. I was about 18 or 19, and we played against a team called Timperley. It was a Sunday game, not competitive, but it was competitive. They had a player called brilliant player called David Hurd, wonderful cricketer, but even more famous as a footballer because he was David Hurd, the Manchester United striker, played in the great team of United in the 60s alongside Bobby Charlton, Dennis Law, George Best and all that. David Hurd was one of their chief goal scorers, and I came herring in from that end where the pavilion is, herring into bowl to him, and he hammered it through mid-wicket for 4 runs. Came in for the next one, back past my feet, boom, 4 runs, straight driven, whizzed past my ankles. Next one, square cut it, bang, past cover point, 4 runs, and I went, who told you I was a City fan? And David laughed and everybody in the field laughed, and we got on with the game. I gave up teaching in 1987 after 20 years in the classroom, and a job came up for a cricket commentator for the 17 first-class counties. It was pre-Durham. There are 18 now, but it was pre-Durham. They came in 92. And I applied for the Lancashire one and got it. And for 15 years I covered Lancashire cricket for the BBC, initially for Cricket Call, covering every game home and away. And in that period, from 88 and 2002, Lancashire won everything but the county championship. They had the most wonderful players. Freddie Flintoff's the obvious one, but they had Mike Atherton, the England captain, the great Neil Fairbrother, Warren Hegg, the wicket-keeper. They had Paul Allott, Phil de Freitas, the great Wasim Akram through the 90s, the Pakistan wonderful player, batting and bowling. Wonderful, wonderful memories, wonderful names, and Lancashire was so successful. I commentated on 7 Lords finals. I've got a picture somewhere of me holding up the Benson and Hedges trophy when Lancashire won it in 1995. Oh, those memories. And when I actually was released from my job in 2002, I was heartbroken. The worst thing that had happened to me in that period was losing my wife. She died in 1994 of cancer. That was awful. Of course it was. But when I lost my job doing the Lancashire cricket, that was like a bereavement as well. Yeah. But I look back now and think, what a lucky man I was. I actually got to know the friendship through having a paper round, and it was my first call. So I became acquainted with the friendship, and of course when I became of age, so to speak, I came in and got involved playing darts. The traditional board wasn't up in the room, they had the Manchester board. It wasn't until I moved a few miles away to Denton and put a team in the Lancashire Super League. I got in the Denton team, I learned the game, I learned a lot about the finishes, and I remember once, on my debut for Denton, we played at Whitefield, which is sort of North Manchester, Bury area. We played at Whitefield, we got battered 8-2, but I was one of our winners. And on one leg I wanted 82 and I went bull double 16, and everybody went, what on earth made you do that? And I said, that's the standard way to go. Bobby George goes that way. If you hit the 25, it leaves you with 17 double top. 25 leaves 57. So if you're going for the bull, but knowing if you hit the 25, 17 tops. They went straight in the bull, straight in the double 16. And everybody's eyes popped out of their head. From playing Super League for Denton, I then started comparing the games. And then eventually that resulted in my being promoted to refereeing the Lancashire games on stage. Dickie Bowen, suit and everything. 100. When Lancashire played Staffordshire, Bristow was in the Staffordshire team, and I got to know the players that way. John Lowe played for Derbyshire, Bob Anderson and Cliff Lazarenko played for Surrey. London had a very strong team. Keith Deller played for them, Bristow later on. And so I got on the exhibition circuit, doing exhibitions with Bristow and Jockey Wilson, and then eventually, because of my connections with Piccadilly Radio, I actually reported on the Embassy World Championships for BBC Radio Sport. Going down to the World Championships at Frimley Green and seeing the WDC being formed and gradually breaking away from the BDO, negotiations breaking down. And then when the final break came and they needed television commentators, they roped in myself and Dave Lanning. Dave Lanning, a voice for television from ITV over previous decades, myself a brand new voice, and of course eventually Sky came along and Dave and I did the first World Championship. We were eventually joined by Sid in the summer of '94 at the first ever World Match Play, and the three of us worked as a team for a good decade before Stuart Pike joined it, and then others came along, and then later on in 2011 Sid was taken ill, contracted cancer. Dave had already retired in 2010, and there were big changes, and I decided that I would bow out in 2013, which is what I did, although I still go back and do the odd guest appearance. I commentated on all 16 of Phil Taylor's world titles, and yet the biggest moment for me was the one he lost in 2007, when he and Raymond van Barneveld, who was fresh to the PDC, he'd moved across from the BDO a move that gained the world's attention, because Barney was the number one from the BDO at the time, undisputed. Phil Taylor, the undisputed number one for that, and they met a few times during that 2006 year. But the one that really mattered was the World Championship a few months later, on January the 1st, the final, 2007. Taylor and Barney. And Barney was 3-0 down. He finished the match with 21 180s because he picked up in the fourth set and took it all the distance, 6 sets all, sudden death.
Tops he wants.
And Barneveld is the champion of the world. And Barney down on his knees, his arms in the air, and it's iconic, that the voice and the picture together. Probably the pinnacle of world darts. Yeah, that's my favourite darting moment. And lots of others, but that is my favourite. I'd still love to be doing the darts more regularly than I do. I get the odd guest appearance. And without naming names, I have my favourite commentators, and I have the commentators I'm not very fond of. Mainly the ones who tell you what you're already looking at, and don't embellish it. But even though I'm 72, I'm reasonably fit, and I've no intention of retiring until it retires me. I still get to watch City whenever I can. I'm very well looked after. The club give me complimentary tickets. They look after me with refreshments in the President's room. I have a great admiration for Manchester United because they are a magnificent advertisement for this great city. I still love my childhood days in Shropshire, in rural Shropshire, but Manchester's extra special.